Okay. Now, the chords in this song, they're virtually pretty much all open string chords. There's one chord in this song, the G minor. Comes only one time. That is not, it's a bar chord, obviously, on the 3rd fret. And then we play an F major one time, okay, and that's a bar chord. You can play the small version. The rest of the time, you got a C major chord, a C major 7th, a C2, an F major 7th, an E minor 7th. Those are an A minor. So those are the chords. But he plays different variations of and different fingerings, for example, on a C2. Normally, in pop music, your C2 is going to be this way. The way we're going to play it, we have our C chord. We're going to just put our pinky right there and do it that way, okay? That's the way he plays it. So we have our C2 chord, and then this, so after that, then the C major 7th, here's our C chord again. We just lift the first finger up. That's C major 7th. And then the F major 7th is just this. And that's 3, 2, 1, and then the open first string. That's F major 7th. Sometimes you'll hear that root that he'll play. You can put that with your thumb. You don't have to play it, but sometimes he's doing that. And if you listen to it, that's what you're hearing. Okay, so those 3 chords. We have a straight E minor. The other thing is whenever we play a G chord, instead of playing the G with the root on the top, when he plays the G on this song, the voicing that he uses is this. No top G, it's an open E, which makes it technically a G6. And I'm just going to refer to it as the G chord, G major chord. Now you can play that the way I do with 3 and 2, or if you're more comfortable doing 2 and 1, it doesn't matter, that's fine. The same thing with C2. If you're more comfortable doing this, sometimes I do this, fingering. It's the same voicing, but sometimes I do that fingering, okay? So like the intro to this is this sound. It starts C2, C major 7th, that's one measure, and then one measure of F major 7. It goes like this. And then when he starts humming, it's the C2 again. Then we go E minor. Now, this next chord is really technically C major 9, which is this, and then we put our pinky on the B, and then our 3rd finger on D, and you can play the open E. That's more associated with jazz. That's what he's doing there on that chord. Very pretty sounding chord. You might want to try to get that, and it comes in that spot. But the other thing you can do is you could just play a C2, and I'm sure, other than yourself, people aren't going to hear the difference there. So, starts out with the C2, goes E minor. Now I'm going to play the C major 9, goes back to E minor. And then that repeats. Does it again. C2, E minor. Now the second time, he just plays a C chord. And then he plays a G. And he comes in singing. Okay? And then the singing just starts with a C, full measure, F major 7th, then the G, the way I showed you, the full measure of C. And then we go C, C major 7th, F major 7th, G. Now watch this. C. Now this, basically all I'm doing is, because it's an E minor chord, but really what he's doing, he's got that B in the bass. He doesn't hit the E. He doesn't do that. He does this. Now you can also think of that as a G with a B in the bass. You can, either way. But that's a little different there. Now, could you just play an E minor there? Absolutely. But if you listen closely, you'll hear that B. Okay? And then it goes into the next section, which goes A minor. Okay? So it's just a regular A minor chord. Then it's E minor 7th. And you can play the E minor 7th however you want. You could just do this and then put your pinky here on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. The way I do it, there, and I have the 2 Ds, and D here and D here. That's E minor 7th. And I go F major 7th for a full measure, G. Then we're into the next section, which is C to E minor. Okay, 2 chords in a measure. 1 full measure of F major 7th. G for a full measure. C to E minor with the B. Okay, which we talked about. That happens again. It happens a couple times in this song. Then it goes A minor. The E minor with the B or the G with the B, however you want to do it. I think in this case, it's more that way. And then F major 7th again. Then the G for full bar. I shouldn't play it that way. I'm sorry, that's my fault. It's here. And the C, the E minor with the B, and then it's the guitar solo, which, well, I'll teach you the chord. The chords are basically what we've been playing to the guitar solo. And when we play along with the song, you'll hear that. But the guitar solo is again, very, the chords are very simple on the guitar solo. After the guitar solo, it comes out, when the voice comes back in, the chords are E minor to A minor. These are 1 measure apiece, G to C. And then it repeats again, the same thing. Here's that G minor. F. G. C. F major 7th. Then it goes back to the bridge section. And the song ends. And basically, when the song ends, we have just kind of an arpeggio in with the, and then he comes back to the C. He just kind of does that, like, and it might be this, or, and then he does this. Then he does this. Okay, and that's your ending chord, which again is another jazz voicing. I'm going to show it to you. It's in this case it would be a C major 7th, or C major 9, I should say, with an E in the bass. Okay, so what we're going to do is take your index finger, your first finger, you're going to bar it across the 7th fret to the 5th string. You don't need the 6th string. And then you're going to put your second finger on the 8th fret of the 2nd string, and your pinky finger on the 10th fret of the 4th string. So the notes are, you got your E, you got a C, okay, then you got a D, then you have a G, then you have a B. It's that sound. That's his last chord. If you want to get that. Again, if you're just singing and playing, you don't have to get any of these more difficult chords. There's ways to make them easier, except for the G minor. I mean, you could play the G minor small, but you probably want to learn that chord if you don't know it. Okay, before we get into the rhythm of this song, I should mention that you do want to get the C2 sound, because that's part in the major 7th. And then, but as far as the E minor with the B, or you could just play, or even an E minor 7th, you can get by playing an E minor. That's fine. I like to show you the exact chords, because some people want to play the exact chords. Others, they just want to be able to get, in the ballpark for the sound. That it's not wrong, but it's not as correct as what the artist is doing, but it's still going to be fine. So when you get to that E minor, you could just play an E minor chord, and that's fine. When you get to that C major 9 that I showed you, you could just play the C2. That's going to be totally fine there. So the rest of the chords are pretty easy. The C chord and A minor chord, and you just play them. So the only other ones that you want to make easier, that anytime you have that E minor with the B or the G with the B, you can just play an E minor chord there, and it's going to be fine.